Hey everybody, we've got a great one today, for a change, and this time I mean it. And I know that some folks are getting sick of me saying that. So, okay, today's podcast is not good. Just not good. No, it's great. And you know why? My guest is David Axelrod, the mastermind behind Barack Obama's ascent to the presidency. Oh, there were other masterminds, David Plouffe and, Barack Obama. Barack Obama, no matter what Donald Trump says, is very smart. Now, regular listeners of this podcast know that I took a little break, and now we're back through the election, which I believe is November 3rd. And a lot of people call this the most important election of our lifetime. Actually, that was the last election, but we blew it. David and I spoke this past Monday before the Republican convention, so I'm going to give you my take on what I saw this past week. Jesus Christ! How sickening was that? What can I say that you haven't already heard? Lies and fear. Lies and fear. If you're listening to this, you probably know those were lies. I'm afraid that he wins. And it's over. It's over. Obama was right in his speech. It's over. Democracy's over. And we know that. We know that from what he did immediately after he was acquitted. There's not much I have to tell you. Here's the thing. Here's the thing I worry about is that I watch coverage on MSNBC, on CNN, and I read coverage. The lies are massive. It's massive tonnage of lies. Other people get their news elsewhere. We have a divided country, and I'm very concerned. I want to talk about two lies that I haven't heard even our side mention, and that is one on tariffs and China. Trump says over and over again, China has paid tens of billions of dollars in tariffs because of me. No, China has paid nothing, not a cent in tariffs. That's not how tariffs work. Okay, let's say Best Buy is importing some Chinese TVs. Best Buy pays the tariff. And they may pass some of that on to their consumers. So the consumers are paying it. But guess who's been paying for the sanctions that he put on? The American taxpayer. And let me tell you how. I represent Minnesota. Agriculture, huge part of Minnesota's economy. A lot of soybeans and corn. We produce a lot of soybeans and corn. We export it. But China retaliated, and we stopped being able to sell soybeans and corn and other ag products to China. And what did that do? It depressed the farm economy. Farmers lost their operations. Farmers committed suicide. Now, you remember that $12 billion in taxpayer money that went to farmers, which did not make farmers whole. Well, the American taxpayer paid for that. So China, nothing. American taxpayer, billions. Another one, his press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. She gave a very personal speech. She introduced herself. Most of you probably know me as a supporter of Donald Trump, as a President Trump, as opposed to saying I'm the press secretary speaking at the convention. But okay. Then she told this very personal story about a pre-existing condition that she has, that she inherited. And she says, I'm telling you this to tell you how much President Trump cares about protecting people with pre-existing conditions. Here's the thing. Every bill that the Republicans passed or didn't pass in the Senate did not protect people with pre-existing conditions. The Trump administration is in court trying to get rid of the ACA, which is the only thing that protects people with pre-existing conditions. So this was an enormous lie, and She knows that. She knows that. This is who they are. It's just disgusting. So, everybody, please, please, please work to get Biden elected. We only have how much time? 8 weeks? 9 weeks? I need you to go out and work. One, we need you to be a poll worker. Mark Elias, our head election lawyer for Democrats, been very clear that that's one of the best things people can do. We need poll workers because so many of the poll workers are over 60 and over 70. Another thing, go talk to your neighbors. Go door to door. Sign up to be a volunteer. That's the most effective thing that you can do. And listen, ignore your family. Ignore your jobs. You can go door to door, wear a mask, ring the bell, go 6 feet away from the door, and talk to your neighbors and tell them the importance of this election. When I say ignore your family, here's the thing I know. This is what I've learned. A 6-year-old child knows how to use a microwave oven. And not only that, and here's a fact. A 6-year-old child can teach a 4-year-old child to use a microwave oven. And, most politics is really about getting away from your family, because that's why they say when they retire, they say, I want to spend more time with my family. That's how you know that. So, also ignore your job. No, but in all seriousness, all hands on deck. Okay, everybody? All right, David Axelrod. This is a great one. And not for a change. I am so happy this week to have as my guest David Axelrod. He is a host of the Axe Files. Just love his podcast. He's done over 400 episodes of the Axe Files, and he's just had the greatest guests you could possibly want, from John Lewis through Justice Sonia Sotomayor to Tony Fauci to Barack Obama, just everyone you'd want as a guest. And what David does is so impressive. And David, I just have to compliment you, because for each interview, you just do a tremendous amount of research, and you really talk in great depth about your guests' lives, from where they came from, not just geographically, but their family history, education, early experiences, all through the big events in their lives that shape them as human beings and which inform the choices that they've made that define their careers as what we know them for. So, David, my first question to you is, what have you done besides your podcasts?
In my whole life?
Yeah, because it's a really great podcast. And I was wondering, how do you book all these people? How do you get them to do your show?
Well, let me just say, and you can appreciate this, big shout out to my staff on the research. And the whole conceit of the show is that we don't really know each other. We know people as public figures. We know them as politicians in many cases, but we don't know who they really are. And I started my life as a journalist, and I think even as a political strategist, my orientation has been to be a storyteller, whether it's the story of your candidate or the story of a campaign or the story of a country. I started this at a time when it was clear we were deeply riven, and I wanted to just try to expose people as human beings. But it's kind of it's a sidelight for me. I'm still doing my senior commentary work at CNN. I still run the Institute of Politics that I started at the University of Chicago. I've got another podcast for the election called Hacks on Tap with Mike Murphy. So I'm just trying to stay out of trouble, Al. That's basically what I'm doing.
So the secret is research? Is that it? Is that what you're saying?
I think research is really, it's important to know where to probe and where to ask. And I get these thick memos before every podcast, 20 pages or more. And, I look for things in people's lives that are, I'm sitting down tomorrow with Jim Clyburn. And there's this really compelling story about his dad, who he went through the 7th grade 3 times, not because he wasn't a good student, but because when he was growing up, 7th grade was the last grade you could attend as an African American in South Carolina. And later in life, when he got into college and he was about to get his degree, and he was denied that because he had never graduated from high school. And, those kind of stories are searing. They're obviously formative for the person you're talking to, but they also illustrate what we're dealing with in this country that we have to fix. These are the things, when you talk about systemic racism, there it is staring you in the face. And I just love it. I love learning about people. It's a great thing to do if you are curious about people and want to know who they are. One of my favorites was, I did several with Nancy Pelosi, but I asked her once, her father was, as you know, the mayor of Baltimore, and, great Democratic leader in that town. And I asked her, what did you learn growing up in that household? And she didn't bat an eye. She just said, I learned how to count. And she said, I learned that I hear you is not a yes. A nod of the head is not a yes. Only yes is yes. And you could see why she became the great legislative leader that she is, because she learned those skills early. But every person is just a rich story, and it's the challenge is to mine those bits of it that are really interesting and illuminating. And I love doing it.
So you worked with Obama, right?
Yes, I did for a few years there. Yeah. Like from the time he was a state senator to the time he was president.
Yeah, and a great president. And before I go any further, I just want to tell people that we're friends, and you've been a very good friend to me, David.
Well,
and I'm very grateful, and enough of that.
I value that, and I appreciate it, Al.
So we're recording this at a weird time, this is the Monday. This is the day. It's the afternoon, the day that the Republican convention starts. So when this airs, the convention will have been over. So what I thought as an exercise is an odd exercise, that you and I predict what's going to happen in the Republican convention and see how we do. So let me go first.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a lot of lying.
Okay. You're not asking me you're not asking me to rebut that, are you?
No, I'm just. I just want you to come up with something as accurate as that.
No, I think it's true. I think these fact checkers are going to be on tilt by the end of the week. It's going to be such an active week for them.
It's impossible. I just heard him. He just gave a speech.
I saw that, yes.
Did you listen to it?
Yes. He was back with the conspiracy theories. They spied on me. They're trying to do it again.
The density of the lies is what's remarkable. There's almost nothing he says that isn't a lie.
Yeah. No, he lies for practice. There's no doubt about it. It's worked for him for a long time.
Yeah, he gave this line today. He said this to them. He said, "The only way I can lose is if it's rigged."
Yeah.
That's another way of saying I can't win unless I cheat.
Well, and it's also a way of setting up the result if he doesn't win. Listen, I've said this for a long time, there are only two outcomes here in Trump's telling. One is he wins or it's rigged. That's been true from the beginning. But what he's setting up is, if he does lose, this is going to be the launching pad for his next enterprise, which is to be the leader of the resistance, the grievance resistance. He'll go over to OAN and he'll set up camp there. And the premise of it is going to be they stole the presidency from us. And it is a very frightening thing because there are people who, as you know, listen to him and follow him. So I worry about not just the fabric of our democracy, but I worry about people in the streets doing irresponsible things provoked by Donald Trump, telling them that the White House was stolen from him and by extension them. That is what he is setting up.
And he may be setting that up before he leaves. In other words, he may be setting that up for November 4th.
I have no doubt about it. That is his fallback plan. And, even before the last election, if you go back and look, Al, he was saying that the only way they can win is if the election is rigged. And interestingly, because he didn't quite understand his own situation, he was thinking in terms of the blue wall, the alleged blue wall, and he said the Electoral College is a rigged deal. Of course, it was rigged in his favor, it turns out. And the only way that he could win this time, and I think, look, there is a non-trivial chance that he can win. Most incumbent presidents get reelected. He is a guy who will do anything, so it's asymmetric warfare. This voting thing is very worrisome. But he doesn't have to win. He's going to lose the country by more than he lost last time. And he lost by 3 million votes last time. He will lose by more than that this time, but all he has to do is hang on to most of the states that he won last time. He could lose Pennsylvania and Michigan as long as he hangs on to Wisconsin and everything else that he won last time. He'd still get reelected. So, this thing is not over, but certainly the odds don't favor him, and this is his fallback plan.
I mean, when you say he has people to follow him, he has 40% of the country that just follows him, that takes whatever he says. Maybe it's 38, and then there's another 2% who are with him for some other reason, for their own self-interest because they're rich or something. There might be some people who go like, okay, he's full of crap, but I'll vote for him because it's in my self-interest. But these people believe him. So what is going to be, because that's what we're going to see this week. By the time people hear this, this will be all hashed out. You'll hash it out on CNN. Other people will hash it out all over the place. It'll be all hashed out. But how do we fight that? You have won presidential elections, not you yourself. Mm-hmm. Not you yourself.
There are a couple other people involved.
Yes, right. I got you on here, and I've not done that. I've not won a presidential race. Mm-hmm. How do we win? Tell us how to win, please.
Well, first of all, you need to concentrate like a laser on that handful of, this is obvious, but on that handful of states. And in addition, this year, Arizona is a bona fide swing state. 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton's campaign spent more money in Arizona than Michigan, and that turned out to be a terrible decision. You really have to have a kind of a hierarchy of states depending on their likelihood to go your way and what you need to win. And they had their prioritization wrong. They took Michigan for granted and paid a big price for that. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania as well, but Michigan in particular on the resources.
There was a point at which they thought, okay, this is going to be a landslide, right? That was when they were doing Arizona. Even they were talking about Texas even. We're not making that mistake this time. I mean,
no.
Joe Biden is going to be in Michigan and
or at least virtually,
yes, or actually physically in some way. I think we'll get to a point where we're doing
he may well
some version of what Trump does, but with the masks and social distancing as opposed to Tulsa.
Yes, yeah. But Arizona is another opportunity there, and a kind of insurance policy against losses in some of these other states. And the reason being that 54% of the electorate there lives in Maricopa County, and a lot of it is one big suburb, and the suburbs are places where Trump has lost a lot of ground, particularly among women. You can see him trying to make it up now in a really crude and obvious way. He tweeted over the weekend that I don't see how suburban women could vote for Biden, basically because he's going to, these cities are hotbeds
of people are coming.
Yeah, they're coming. They're coming. Those dark people are going to come in and invade your suburbs, and I'm the thin blue line, between them and you. But it is a recognition on his part of a real problem that he has. But the Phoenix area has it's one big suburb in many ways, and he didn't win by that much last time. Hispanic voters are obviously a bigger play. I get so excited about these little details. From a strategic standpoint, Joe Biden was a challenged primary candidate because he is an older, white, Irish Catholic, working class guy from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and he doesn't really look like the emerging Democratic majority. But in a general, that's actually very helpful to him. I think progressive policies should be stressed because progressive policies have now become mainstream policies. What seemed utopic and radical before, like the fact that everybody should have health care, now seems like a practical answer to a very emergent problem. And I think that was the brilliance of the Democratic Convention. He needs to stay where he is. He is a reassuring figure to moderate voters in this country and to these suburban voters who are going to be necessary. So, stressing him as a man of faith and family, of a military family, as someone who is rooted in the working class neighborhoods of Pennsylvania, I think we're all really, really smart. Because, there's a reason, Al, that Donald Trump bought an impeachment trying to stop Joe Biden from becoming the nominee. And that this is the reason. He is hard to demonize. And, while they will try this week, and you'll see a lot of it, that Joe Biden has radical plans to tax and regulate. He's going to tax you. He's going to ruin the economy for the middle class. I can rebuild the economy from this virus. He can't do it. The immigration stuff will play, this crime stuff we mentioned. So, I think that Biden needs to continue to be that reassuring figure that we saw at the convention. And I think he has to continue to hammer the hell out of him on the virus, because really what's happened on the virus is that there are a lot of people who sat in focus groups a year ago or 8 months ago and said, Donald Trump is a jerk. I don't like him personally. I don't like the way he behaves. But the economy's good. Things seem to be working well. He's kicking people in the ass I don't like. So, I can tolerate that. I'll take the bad with the good. Now, there's a cost associated with his personality. There's a cost associated with his jerkiness. I mean, his unwillingness and his lack of seriousness. This is what Obama addressed in his speech at the convention. That has a cost now. It's measured in the loss of human life. It's measured in the loss of jobs. It's measured in the loss of businesses. And I think that Democrats have to keep on him about this. And now you know what's going to happen, Al, on his side, and he'll probably hint at this at the convention this week. But you saw traces of it right before. Last night, as we're taping this, he did a quick press conference at the White House to announce, that he was fast-tracking, or the FDA, clearly at his request, was fast-tracking this convalescent plasma treatment. Well, we all want treatments and we all want a vaccine, but we also want them to be safe. It's like hydroxychloroquine, which turned out to be, in his words, in the word that he prefers, he wouldn't say this about this. He called it a miracle, but this actually turned out to be a hoax.
Yeah, and actually could kill you if you had a heart.
But getting back to the campaign, circle a date on your calendar, and I think it will be the most important date of the election, and that's September 29th, the first debate. Because really what the Republicans have done, because they haven't been able to demonize or scare people about Biden, their argument has been that he doesn't have the mental acuity or strength or stamina to be president. And, this has been Trump's big theme. Biden took a big meat axe to it by delivering an energetic acceptance speech. But the big test is September 29th, the first debate. They've set the bar very low for Joe Biden. And I think if Biden comes and is the guy we saw giving that acceptance speech, if he is strong and coherent, reassuring, that if he parries with Trump, but I think, not in a way that he's just trading insults with him.
Let's talk about prepping a candidate for a debate, because you've had the experience with Obama of having that.
For good and bad, yes.
Yes, in that first disastrous debate against Romney, which I remember the president calling me in 2014, and it was the night before my first debate, and that's not why he called me, he was just checking in. And I said, oh, God, I just, for some reason, I wasn't nervous my first time I ran. I am nervous now. And he said, because it's a play, and you have to learn your lines.
Yes, exactly.
And I said, yeah. And I read from your book that he really just hated this process because he's more discursive. He wants to explain really why he has a position. But strategically, you're saying September 29th is the next huge important moment in this campaign, that first debate.
I think it's the moment, I think.
And you're preparing him.
Yes.
And this is kind of what I wanted, also your strategy for beating him. Debating him is different than debating anybody else,
yes,
as Hillary saw. Because Hillary, by any normal terms, just wipe the floor with him.
Yes.
What's the approach that Biden takes in that debate?
First of all, just a word on a couple of things, and then we'll get to how he has to prepare. He has two things going for him. One was the one I mentioned. Trump has set the bar low. The second is the history of presidents, and we tried to resist this. The history of presidents in first debates when they're running for re-election is really dismal. Presidents haven't debated in 4 years. They haven't had anyone being treated as an equal on a stage for 4 years in their grill. They tend to want to be very defensive. You know, it almost always is a disaster. Clinton escaped that against Dole in 96, but generally the history of it has been bad. And so that is to his benefit. First of all, you prepare for a debate by simulating everything that you think you are going to see. You set up a replica of what the stage is going to look like. You have someone play the moderator who has studied the moderator and has a good sense of not only what questions they'll ask, but how they will ask them. And you get someone to play the opponent. This is important casting. Not everyone can play Donald Trump. Just a sidelight on this. Back in 2008, Jennifer Granholm played Sarah Palin in our debate preps for Biden for the vice presidential debate. And she captured Palin's speech patterns, all her idiosyncrasies, even "Can I call you Joe?" I think she forecast that. It seems so crazy that we were like laughing, saying, "There's no way it can be like this." And she said, "Nope, I've watched all the film of her debating. I'm telling you, this is how she's going to be." And it turned out that she forecast a lot of the moments that we saw in that debate, and Biden was well prepared for it. So having the right person who really can channel Donald Trump. And here's the thing, Al, preparing for Donald Trump isn't that hard in this way. It's not like he's going to come in with a new strategy. It's not like he's going to be a different person. You know, what happened with us in Denver in 2012 was Mitt Romney shed his conservative casings and returned to being the moderate Republican that he was in Massachusetts. And we weren't prepared for that. He didn't come and use a lot of the material that he had used during the campaign. We didn't prepare well for it, and Obama didn't make the adjustment on the stage. That made it a very difficult debate for us, in addition to the other handicaps that I mentioned earlier about being a president running for re-election. Donald Trump's not going to do that. He doesn't develop new material.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask a question about that, because he doesn't work new material, so he's going to lie throughout the debate. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I think that you got to count on that.
Yes. So here's a question. Would this be a good approach? You're lying.
Yeah.
You always lie.
No, but I mean, the thing is, you cannot do that every answer. Now, what might be a good idea, and I haven't discussed this with anybody.
Yes, you can.
What might be a good idea is saying at the beginning, when he tells his first lie, saying what the president said is a lie. It is an abject, bald-faced lie. And just to all of you watching out there, I want to direct you to a website. Whatever it is, you can choose a nonpartisan website and say, they are watching this debate. They are judging what we say. I really urge you to watch it, because what you're going to find is that most of what the president says tonight will not be true.
But is there anything to coming at him in a way he might not expect, which is, you, sir, are a pathological liar, for example, and then of the 15 to 20,000 lies that he has told, just have at your disposal 15 of the most ridiculous, bald-faced lies that even his supporters are going like, yeah.
Yes, I think those are good things to do, but you can only do them once, and so it gets tiresome after a while, and you can't return to the same devices. I think he also has to prepare for provocations. If I'm Trump, I want to get inside Biden's head and I razz him about Hunter, because he knows that's how sensitive Biden is about his children. Maybe he says something about him hiding behind his son, Beau. That would enrage him. And then there's the big question of, I'm a big fan of jujitsu in dealing with Trump because it's very easy to get into a brawl with him. And there will be moments in that debate where Biden may have to get into a bit of a brawl with him. But at some point, you want to take Trump's negative energy and talk to the country and use it as an example of what we've seen for 4 years and really challenge people to ask themselves, can we go through another 4 years like this, of the crazy tweets?
And the pandemic. One of the lies he's going to tell is, I saved millions of lives.
Yeah.
He's going to do that, and he's going to say by closing down China. And he didn't actually close down China really at all. It was not a flight ban. People came in, and also it was already here. Yeah. And also it came through Europe.
Well, I mean, his problem is, first of all, people are living this. But secondly, most of the other industrialized countries in the world face the same challenges and handled it. He often says, this is all about testing. And he said, Japan's having terrible times, Japan, I think that the last time I looked, and I'm sure the number's higher now, Japan, which is about a third of our size, a little more than a third of our size, had lost about 1,200 or 1,400 people. We're up to 176,000. So he may play the millions of lives card. If Biden's skillful, I think that people will come out questioning Trump's mental acuity, and certainly his mendacity will be on display, but his acuity may be as well. What I wouldn't advise is just 90 minutes of trading schoolboy taunts with Trump, because if you get into a pissing match with Trump, he always comes with a larger tank. And I don't think that's productive. I think you have to pick your spots where you're really going to go at it with him, and then you got to pick your spots where you kind of say to the country, "This is him. This is the president of the United States, and we can't afford it. Frankly, we can't afford another 4 years." So that is a nuance that they're going to have to work on. But the key is to make sure that nothing happens on that stage that Biden hasn't been prepared for, that no question comes that he hasn't contemplated, that no rejoinder or insult or something that comes from Trump that he hadn't heard before. And the more that this is all familiar to him, and this is true not just of Biden, but any candidate, the less that you have to ad-lib and the more that you come prepared for whatever is likely to come your way, the better you're going to do.
Isn't the trick, though, and I think that there is a trick to this, which is being able to have that stuff down, but also speak like a human being.
Yes.
And not just be regurgitating talking points. And I think that's what President Obama was bridling about, was he felt that those were lines.
No, you're right. I will tell you a story. I mean, in between the first and second debate, he knew. I mean, he didn't know when he left the stage, but he quickly knew when he saw what everybody said about the debate that it didn't go well. And he said to us, frankly, I am a lawyer and I'm trained to sort of answer questions literally, and this is not really debating. This is acting. You have to be prepared with your lines. You have to deliver them, as you say, in a way that's natural and quotable. And, he said that's a whole different thing. And I resist it. I mean, your insight into him was really good. But you know what? He did it. He did it. The next debate, he had 14 answers that he wrote, diagrammed out on one page in the back, and he knew exactly what he wanted to do. But they weren't, as you say, a recitation of facts. They were bits, that he developed.
Right. And writing them down is a good idea. I used to learn my lines, when in SNL, for example, I'd write them down and write them down and write them down. Let's talk about, you were talking about suburban women, and in 18, to me, the number one issue was health care. And healthcare is related, of course, to the pandemic and also to the fact that this guy actually said, who knew healthcare
it was so complicated. Yeah.
Clearly, Americans want to build on the ACA. This guy wants to destroy it. That's all he's been after. He wants to destroy anything Obama did. And to me, the one way to get these suburban women, they don't want to lose their health care. They don't want to lose their health insurance. Remember, I think Obama's biggest mistake President Obama's biggest mistake may have been, if you like your policy, you can keep it. And that wasn't actually the case.
Right. He would say that too.
And I think that the thing that scared me about a Bernie candidacy, I respect Bernie, and he played an important role in moving us to a more progressive place. But what worried me about single payer was saying no private insurance. There's not another country in the world, not a developed country in the world. They all have universal health care. All the other developed countries, they all have private insurance. And what I was really concerned about was, are suburban women going to go like, wait a minute, we love our insurance that we get through our employer. We really I want to keep that.
Yes.
I think that we win on this again because he has absolutely no credibility at all. He said, I'm going to repeal and replace with something terrific. And it didn't happen. What he wanted to replace it with was awful. And Americans saw that, and we picked up 41 seats.
Right.
And those were a lot of suburban women going like, oh boy, no.
I agree with that, Al. You know that what we're going to hear during this convention week is they are not going to allow for the fact that Biden did not endorse Medicare for all with no private insurance. They are going to assign to him, and they're going to use the fact that Kamala Harris was a co-sponsor of the bill and that Biden and Bernie Sanders, worked through some policy positions, though, by the way, did not endorse in the party platform Medicare for all.
No.
So they will, as you pointed out at the top, Trump isn't exactly bounded by the facts, and he is going to try and hammer this notion that, Democrats would take health care away from 180 million Americans, when the reality is Democrats wouldn't take health care away from 180 million Americans, but Trump would take health care away from tens of millions of Americans who rely on the ACA to get their health care. And, it's laughable. I heard someone say, well, what are his objectives for the second term? And say, well, he's going to come forward with his comprehensive health care plan. It's been 5 years, since he promised that he was going to replace the ACA with something that would be more affordable and better. And we haven't ever seen it. What we've seen is his desire to destroy the ACA, but we haven't seen any replacement, because the truth of the matter is he has none. So Biden ought to score big in a debate on that. I mean, that ought to be a real winning sequence for him.
People want to build on the ACA. They don't want to destroy it. That we know. We just know
right.
that.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of empirical evidence of that as well. And, like I said, things that seemed, utopian or radical in the past, like, for example, I didn't think it was then, but the public option in the healthcare exchanges, that is a wildly popular idea now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was Joe Lieberman.
Yes.
Joe Lieberman vetoed that. I mean, I was there, as you know.
Yes.
In your book, Believer, you talk about when that passed the House.
Yes.
And you were there.
Yes.
And it struck me because most people in public life don't talk about sobbing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. I almost got drummed out of the political consultants union for admitting that
that you sobbed at a certain point.
Yeah, but I did that night, and I'll tell you why. When we started down the road on the ACA, I was his political advisor, and my political advice was, this is very risky. 7 presidents have tried, 7 failed, some at great political cost, and we're right in the middle of this recession. He, in turn, said, yeah, but what are we here for? Are we supposed to put our approval rating on the shelf and admire it for 8 years? They're supposed to draw down on it and try and do things that are important for people. And he went through the whole case as to why this was important. I used to say, Al, I love the guy so much because he listened to me so little. So we forged ahead. And as you know, because you were there and helped us, the thing almost died 1,000 deaths. So in March of 2010, when it passed, we were all gathered in the Roosevelt Room in the White House, which is, as you know, the ornate conference room across from the Oval Office. And the votes were coming in, and it was clear it was going to pass. We knew it was going to pass. President was there, Biden was there, everybody was there. And as the final votes came in, I just got up and I went into my office and I closed the door. My office is right across the hall from there. And I did sob. I didn't even know why at first, but you know why, and I wrote about why. Because I have a daughter, Lauren, who has had epilepsy all her life. She started seizing when she was 7 months old. We couldn't get any control over the seizures for 19 years. And in those early years, I was a reporter at the Chicago Tribune. I had insurance, and I thought that it was adequate. And I found out it wasn't, because they wouldn't pay for her medications, which turned out to be quite expensive. They wouldn't pay for any sort of second opinions, so I had to pay out of pocket. And I was very quickly going bankrupt. I ultimately left the newspaper business in part because of that. And that night I thought about that horrible period in our lives, and I realized that there were families all over this country who wouldn't have to go through that agony because of what he had done and you had done and we had all done to help. And all of a sudden, it all became very real. It's so easy to get caught up in the, who's winning, the red team or the blue team, or, who's got the power and so on. But the real question is, what do you do with it? Do you do something with it to actually help people? And I knew this would help, and I could almost see the faces of people that it could help, because all I had to do was look in the mirror and remember my own experience, my family's experience. And subsequent to that, and I'm sure you had this experience many times, people would come up to me with tears in their eyes saying, the Affordable Care Act saved my life, or the Affordable Care Act saved the life of my child. I will be forever grateful to have been a small part of that. And you were a bigger part, because you cast a vote that made the difference. But
I yelled at you too. So
you did yell at me. Yeah, I can recite the whole speech, by the way.
So you remember this? I'll set it up a little bit.
Yeah, and then I'll give your speech.
Okay, Scott Brown had just won.
Yes. Defeated for the Kennedy seat, which meant we didn't have 60 seats in the Senate.
We had 60 from the time I got there.
Right.
Till then. And that's when we did this. That's when we passed it in the Senate with 60 votes, right? So then Scott Brown gets elected. Now we have 59. So we can't do that anymore. We can't do that. And now the path forward is the House has to pass exactly what we passed.
Right, which the House was loath to do.
We have this caucus there right after Brown gets elected. It was like a one-day retreat. Right. So we're all there, and it was outside the building. I think it was at the Nationals ballpark. So the president comes with the press in tow, with the media in tow. He answers questions. People who are running for re-election get to ask him questions about their state.
Yeah.
Then he leaves and takes the press with him. Now we're alone. Now it's our caucus at the retreat with you, Paul Begala, and Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine was the head of the DNC at the time. I'm sitting there going like, all right, now we're going to hear the plan. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to hear it. Now Begala, I think, goes first. You each do 5 minutes. He does 5 minutes. I'm waiting. Nothing. So finally, when the second guy, whether it was Begala or Kaine, is halfway through, I'm going like, oh, I see. It's just Axelrod. We're going to hear it from Axelrod. We're hearing what they're going to do. That's what we're going to hear. Okay, good. All right. What are we going to do? We're going to get it done. We're going to get the House to do it. Okay, good. You start talking. First minute goes by, no mention of health care. Second minute goes by, none. Third, none. And then let's take it from the fifth moment. Okay, what did I say?
So Al Franken gets called on, and he says, I am livid, is how it began. I am livid. I am doing a slow burn over here.
That's what I was doing.
I want to know when the President of the United States is going to tell the House to pass this bill. And I'm standing up there, and I know that we were 20 votes shy at the time Brown went down in the House. People who said they absolutely would not vote for the Senate bill. It didn't have public option. it wasn't generous enough. We were working with Pelosi on an hour-to-hour basis as she was trying to sway these members. Harry Reid, the majority leader, was a party to these, and Harry was sitting in the front row kind of towing the floor because, part of being a White House aide is you are sent to these meetings to take a ritual beating when people are unhappy. You are human sacrifice. You are chum thrown in the water. And Harry was perfectly content, and I love Harry Reid, perfectly content to let me take the beating because that was my job. But then I started doing a slow burn, knowing what was happening. I don't know if remember what I said, but I said, Senator, if you have 218 votes in the House on a piece of paper in your pocket, I suggest you ankle across the rotunda and give them to Speaker Pelosi because I don't think she has that list.
And then what did I say?
I don't remember. After that, everything blanked out.
I remember what I said.
What did you say?
That's the president's job.
Oh, yeah.
I said that's what the president does.
Yeah. Look, I completely understood your restiveness and that of others. You weren't, you were a little more overt, but you were speaking for a lot of people in that room at the time, and I understood that. But from my standpoint, we were doing every freaking thing we could to try and flip the House. And as soon as we got the sign from Pelosi that she had the votes, we were going to do it. But we had to give her the room to do what she does.
But then you wrote in your book something I took incredible offense.
I think I know the line, but go ahead.
You said that Al Franken, who had been, an actor or a comedian at SNL or comic actor or something like that, it was a good thing he did comic acting because he couldn't be a dramatic actor because he was pretending.
I don't know if I said pretending, but I did say that you were better off in comedy than drama.
You suggested that I was putting this on, and I was not. And by the way, later that night, first of all, other factors in this is that Obama's chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, wanted to bail and go to a lesser package, in which case, I don't know, you would have sobbed for the lesser package.
I was not for the. I was not in for the lesser package.
I know, but we knew that was up in the air too. I knew that, and then also that night, the night I yelled at you was the night the president announced that they were going. Exactly what he was going to do was get the votes in the House. That's right.
Yeah, it may have been. It may have been. Yeah.
And what did I wrote you a note. Do you remember the note?
I do. I still have the note.
It was "You're welcome."
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. No, I still have that, man. It's a treasured heirloom of mine that I have in my desk.
So let's go back to Lauren.
Yes.
Your daughter, Lauren, because she's so lovely.
Yes.
I met her.
You did. You had dinner with us. Yes.
Yeah. And my goodness, she's beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And happy.
Yeah, and resilient. I mean, she's been through so much, 13 hospitalizations, 20 different medications, some of which,
surgeries,
brain surgeries, and just a whole gamut of torture.
We were talking about where she's living during COVID.
Yeah. Lauren lives at a place called Misericordia on the north side of Chicago. It was actually started by a Sister of Mercy named Rosemary Conley, still alive, still running the place. It started in 1969. She took a program that the Archdiocese had and really expanded it. And it is a phenomenal place. They have living arrangements for all different forms of intellectual disability, from very intensive places where you can get 24-hour 7-day-a-week attention to my daughter lives in an apartment with on campus with two other women, to Scylla's in the community. They have incredible work programs and on and off the campus, and a range of activities. My daughter's always busy. She's got lots of friends, and they've done a splendid job of protecting them in this virus. It's the sort of place, because it is a larger campus, and you could see real vulnerability there to the virus. But because they've been so assiduous about it in terms of who gets in and who gets out, and taking temperature and testing and so on, they've really avoided that thus far, and I'm knocking on wood that they continue to. But it's just been a miraculous place for her. And Al, this is something where I take issue with some of our progressive friends who, with all good intentions, because we have a history in this country of large settings where people are warehoused and forgotten, they have taken a sort of one-size-fits-all, everybody with disabilities should live in group homes in the community. And we should not assume that people with disabilities don't have various needs and wants and approaches to life, just like people who don't have disabilities. And for my daughter, she loves the socialization of where she lives, and she is a happy person because of it. My wish for this country is that we develop a range of high-quality options for people with disabilities, and that we fund them properly, so that we provide the proper oversight, which there is here, to make sure that they are delivering on their promises to these people. But we feel very, very lucky that she is there.
Last time we talked, I asked about Lauren, and the thing you said to me, which was funny to me and really struck me, which was when this pandemic started, you basically gave Lauren the choice.
Yes.
Of you want to come live with us or stay where you are, and she and she chose to be where she was. And what you said to me was, she'd be so bored.
Well, and she knew that, but it was so gratifying. She said, I'd rather stay with my friends. And that was such the smart choice, because she would have been bored. If she came home, one of the conditions was that she would have to be quarantined because they didn't want her coming back with the virus. That's part of how they keep people safe. And so we couldn't go out, we couldn't do stuff. And really, it's hard to do that now anyway. And she knew that. But I was just so gratified that basically what she was saying is, my life here, this is my life and I love it. And I don't want to give that up.
David, thank you. And when I really meant it in a way that I won't go into. You have been an amazing friend to me. And I thank you for doing this. Thank you so much.
And to me, Al, so it goes both ways. And it's a pleasure to be with you always. So thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening. That beautiful music is by Leo Kottke, the great Leo Kottke. I want to thank Peter Ogburn for producing this podcast. We'll talk again next week.